Well, that was just one thing that God did, but then he really starts putting something over on me. And that was in 1987. Then in 1988, I think it was 88 or 89, that God told me to do something that I really hated. Because I get up, well, before it happened, was my secretary one day, she told me, she says, my daughter is in love with you. I said, no, she can't be in love with me. I said, she's just fascinated. And I said, I read psychology, and that young people often will assume love for someone who's getting a lot of attention and they think highly of them, and the young person associates that with love. And she let me get away with that for 1 or 2 days, and then she asked me about it again. She said, my daughter is in love with you, and she said she's crying with her heart broke. And I said, well, she can't really be in love. I said, she's got to be just fascinated. And her comment was, she said, Joe, you're a smart person, but you're not listening. She said, this is my daughter. She said, she's crying like a woman does, with her heart broke. And that bothered me, and I said, well, let me think about it from a psychology standpoint as to how we could help her in some way. But it's still hard for me to believe that, but I will think about what you told me. Well, the next morning when I'm taking a shower again, and I figured it out why God speaks to me when I'm in a shower, it represents pureness. Well, I was in that shower again, and he tells me something that really put a rage inside of me. He said, you will accept the love of this young child, or I'll take your son to be with me. Now, he was 6, just fixing to turn to be 7. Now, her daughter was right at 9 years of age. But I knew that God meant it, because when I get up to my shop and I tell my secretary about what had just occurred with me, while I was telling her, the girl I was married to that you saw in this video, she buzzes me on the intercom, and she said, you better get down here quick. She said, your son is violently throwing up and is running a high fever. So I immediately walk outside, going back down to the house, and my secretary hollers to me, I go out the door, you better do what God says. But when I go outside, I start telling God loud, God, you don't have to kill him. If this is what you want me to do, I'll do it. Now, it put a rage in me, and I'm telling you, all the people out there, you wouldn't want to be around me at that time, because I was in a rage. It's against everything that I believe in as a man, and I'm one hell of a man. And that's what girls have told me who've been with me, that other men seemed like shadows of men once they had been with me. God has molded me and turned me into steel. Just like when I was in the 8th grade at Baker High School, 9th grade, I was whipping every boy in high school all the way to the 12th grade in wrestling. I didn't get tired, and after 2 minutes of wrestling, even the guy in the 12th grade, it'd feel like I was wrestling a baby. That's what would come to my mind. I remember when I went to Murphy High School my senior year, a boy who had been in the Marines and had won the state championship in wrestling. I wrestled him, and every time I'd grab him around the neck and throw him down, he wouldn't wrestle me except he had his coach. I said, why do you need your coach? He said, I just need him. I said, I don't care who you get. Anyway, I wrestled him, and the guy was really a friend of mine, but I just like to wrestle. And anyway, every time I throw him down, he'd tell me I have to get him up. After about 10 minutes, the guy who had won the state championship couldn't get off the floor. Couldn't get off the floor. And the coach was telling me to let him loose every time I'd throw him down. I got him around the neck, because that's the way I'd wrestle. That was the name of the game. Make you give up or you make me give up. Talk's cheap. But anyway, it made me so angry at the coach, I got up, stood up, and I said, look, this is a sissy's game. And I said, I don't care who you are. I said, this is a sissy's game, and I turned and walked away. Then the coach told another boy that was with this boy, John, that it wasn't any contest. John was so tired he couldn't get off the floor. But that's the way I grew up. God molded me and turned me into steel so I could serve humanity. Now, I want you to know the rage that was in me when God told me to do this. Now, I sent a press release out to know you, and that's what I said. was my rage at the beginning of this press release, that God has to use a child to get you bigoted people attention, to love each other, instead of have bigotry and biases and prejudice. And that as a man, it offended me so much. And I sent it all over the world, every embassy in the world, all the news people in the world. Now there's scum people who ain't got the guts I got into my little finger that's going to burn in hell, who's tried to take that out of context and said that I did something bad wrong because I said that I had married this girl. That's what I put the press release out, to show that love for her. And there wasn't any marriage. I did what God told me to do. In fact, good people who read that press release I put out wrote this to me. They thought of Abraham because I didn't have a choice. God had told me in no uncertain terms I would do this. Now, I was never charged with any violation of any law. Now, the girl's father tried to get the girl away from my secretary, and I went to court in her behalf, in her defense. And while I was there, the attorney for this person, her husband, was mocking God because he pointed to me and said, "You're saying that God told you to do this for some reason." And it made me angry. I thought for a second. I said, "Look," I said, "if you," now what was interesting to me, this guy was an attorney and he was a preacher as well. And he was mocking God because what I did, I said, God can speak to anyone he wants to, anytime he wants to, and he can speak to you now. And when I did, he shook all over like he'd been struck by lightning. I mean, for a good 15 seconds or so. Then he takes and closes up all his information. He points to that guy and he says, "I'm no longer his attorney." He said, "I resigned from the court," and turned and walked out of the courthouse. The judge was so dumbfounded. He dismissed court. That was the hand of God on that man. And to all my enemies out there, the hand of God will be on you and you will burn in hell who tried to take this out of context. And all these people will burn in hell. Now, this was about the Islamic people. And that's what I said, is that God wanted the rest of the world to like the Islamic people, because that's how Mohammed was marked, and he married a 9-year-old girl. You're not supposed to hate the Mohammed people or the Jewish people or Taoism or Confucianism, Hinduism, Buddhism. God had shown me, after he had shown me this number 14, he had shown me this number 14 is his handprint for all 7 major religions of the earth. Now, I've looked all this up. You people haven't looked it up. Your preachers hadn't looked it up, but look it up in Matthew, 17th verse. It says, "From Abraham to David is 14 generations. From David to carried into Babylon is 14 generations. Carried into Babylon, Jesus Christ is 14 generations." But it doesn't explain what is 14 generations. So I look it up in Britannica Encyclopedia. And I see it's 600 years. Then I look up Taoism, Confucianism, Hinduism, Buddhism. And that's exactly 600 years before Jesus Christ, which is 14 generations also. Jesus comes 14 generations after carrying into Babylon, which is 600 years. The Islamic people are exactly 600 years after Jesus Christ, which is 14 generations. All of this is tied together. The Jewish people were told to, on the 14th day of the first month of the year, for all eternity, they will celebrate the 14th day concerning the Passover. It's no accident my mother awoke after that miracle, and she had died and gone to heaven, and I was 3 months in her womb, and I was raised as a Christian, that God has me saved, great health, saves her, brings her back on earth. She gives you this affidavit before she dies that she swore it's true, and she was so happy when I asked her to do this. Every woman out there should know how she felt, because she knew how I'd kind of blamed her and etc. And I told her before she even had signed this years before that I had forgiven her, that I knew that that had molded me and let me stand against the power brokers. But she cried on my table with her heart breaking. She said, "I thought I had failed God and I had failed you." When she got up, after 4 or 5 minutes of crying, she went down to the courthouse in Lucedale, Mississippi, and that's in the court record. What I told you about this guy who was a preacher and resigned is in the court record in Lucedale, Mississippi, and anybody can go there and see it. God is with me and has been from my birth to serve humanity. All my life, I've been involved with Jewish people. The attorney that we used was Jack Rowitcher in Houston, Texas, with Newman, Dukes and Klein when we formed it. And he told me one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard. He couldn't come to a meeting one day, and he called me and he said, "Joe, I can't come, but there's a young man that got in trouble and he came into town and I'm on a list. And I have to quit whatever I'm doing and immediately go get him a place to stay, get him a job, get him a means of transportation, and give him money so he can function." I said, "That's a mighty good thing to do." I said, "And he pays you right back, right?" He said, "No." I said, "That don't seem right." He said, "Yes, it is." He said, "Let me finish." He said, "When this young man becomes successful in life, then he gets on that list and he has to do it for someone else." And I told him, that's one of the most beautiful things I ever heard in my life. I said, "Why don't the rest of the world do that, for people who are down, who made a mistake, and instead of putting them in jail and locking them up and treating them like crap?" He said, "They just don't, but we do." God has had me interact with Jewish people all my life. I started to marry a Jewish girl when I just came back from Puerto Rico. And girls used to come in out of my apartment like wheat waving or something. And this girl saw me one day, and she was just graduating, a senior in high school, and she saw me one day and stopped me, and she was Jewish, and I didn't know she was Jewish. I didn't care, because I didn't like different religions, not the hatred and the crap and stuff that they did, and I didn't want to be involved in it. But I didn't ask people about their religion. But anyway, she wanted to meet me, and I met her and started dating her. She's a very pretty girl. Well, one day after we'd been going together, and she was very much deeply in love with me, and I loved her, and she came into me one day and she said, "I got to tell you something." And I said, "What?" She said, "My daddy said I got to tell you." I said, "Well, tell me, what is it?" She said, "I'm Jewish." I said, "So what?" Well, she said, "Don't you know that people don't like us?" I said, "Look, wait, just wait a minute." I said, "Let me tell you, I quit believing in God when I was in Puerto Rico. I saw such a disparity between wealth and poverty." I said, "I don't care about none of that crap." I said, "None of that interested me. I like you because I like you, and that ain't what you believe one way or the other. It ain't got nothing to do with it." And she threw her arms around me. She said, "You're the most unbiased person I've ever met, and I love you all the more for it." Now, we broke up simply because of the fact, she told me one day, she says, "I'm going to go up to Montgomery, Alabama to a statewide thing." And anyway, I broke up with her because of that, because I didn't like people just praising themselves. It's a gift from God, and you shouldn't be doing that. This girl that I was thinking about marrying had gone up to the state, and it was a beauty contest what she had entered. And at the time she was going, she had told me she was going, and I told her, I said, "I don't like that, and I don't want you to go." But she said, "My father and all my family wants me to go." I said, "Well," I said, "You do what you want to do." I said, "But if you want to do that, you go ahead and do it, but I choose to break up with you." I said, "I don't like people thinking they're better than other people." And I said, "That's what it implies to me." I said, "I got a great physique," and I did have. You saw it, at the beginning of that film. But I never been in a physical contest in my life to brag on myself. I just think it's wrong that if God's gifted you, that you want to spout it over everyone else, that somehow you're better, you know, and that I'm better than you, and you should kiss my behind because that I have what I have. I hate that. That's the crap that causes people to get downtrodden, and I hate it. But anyway, I told her I wanted to break up with her, and I said, you're going to see something. It don't make any difference what somebody else thinks about you. I said, the only thing that makes any difference, and you're going to see I'm right, is what you think about yourself. And I said, I want you to remember that. Well, she went to that beauty contest, and I've never seen her again. But I saw her friend one day at a drive-in there in Mobile, Alabama. I would go there and pick up girls in a drive-in because girls just flocked to me. I could pull up by a car and just smile at a girl, and she'd immediately start talking to me. And if I liked her, I'd get her phone number and call her. I went through girls like a wheat field when I was young, looking for someone who would be dedicated to the things I was. Anyway, I met her, this girl's friend. She saw me and she hollered at me to come over to her car, and I went over to the car and she says, aren't you Joseph Newman? And I said, yeah. She said, my friend, the girl you were with is my friend and she's my roommate. And I'd like to know what you said to her, because she won't go anywhere or she won't do anything. She just studies and she stays there in the dorm. She won't go anywhere. And she said, I want to know what you told her. I said, that's none of your business. I said, that was something between she and I. And I said, you send her a message that I hope that she has a very good life and remembers what I said. But I knew that she was remembering that. All my life, I've had Jewish people be involved with me. Jewish people have loaned me money and not charged me any interest. And they don't charge, and they've told me they don't charge each other interest. Now, they'll charge the Gentiles interest, but they don't charge each other interest. God blames them for that. Now, I want the Jewish people to know something, is that God is going to put Israel is going to be destroyed, and he's told me this is in no uncertain terms, and he tells you this in the Bible, and he gives you the quote on it. And I'll show you how clear I am about this. The Christians don't know this information. The Jewish people don't know these comments, and they don't teach them. The rabbis don't know it. In psychology that I've studied, it tells you. It's called the denial syndrome. If somebody feels threatened by information, they will deny it, no matter how factual it is, and it don't bother them. Well, let me just tell you that I know that God is going to do all this, and I'll give you the quotes, and they're going to be stated to you. But I'm going to just give you the gist of it, of what I did. I went over to Texas, North Texas University, and Jim, that you saw in this video, had gone with me. He was a witness to it. we go over and we talk with the guy who's in charge of the Jewish students, which are about 800 Jewish students there. Now he teaches them the Old Testament. He doesn't teach them the New Testament, he teaches them the Old Testament. Now you would think he would know the Bible. Admit it, you would think that he would know it. He's teaching at a college. I'm sure he's got his doctorate. Well, I asked him some questions. I said, did you know that Moses, on the last day, before he went to be with God, God gave him the last command he gave him to write a song saying the Jewish people were going to be severely punished in the latter days. And he wrote a song, and it's in Deuteronomy 32.
Give ear, O you heavens, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, as the showers upon the grass. Because I will publish the name of the Lord. Ascribe ye greatness unto our God. He is the rock, his words is perfect. All his ways are judgment, a God of truth, and without iniquity. Just and right is he. They have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his children. They are perverse and crooked generations. Do ye that require the Lord, O foolish people, and unwise? Is not he thy father that had brought thee? Had he not made thee and established thee? Remember the days of the old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will assure thee, the elders, and they will tell thee. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land, in the waste howling wilderness. He led him about. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirreth up her nest, fluttereth over her young, spreadeth abroad her wings, taketh them, beareth them on her wings. So the Lord alone did lead him, and there was no strange God with him. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields, and he made him to suck honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock, butter of kine, and milk of sheep, with the fat of lambs, and rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats with the fat of kidneys of wheat, and thou didst drink the pure blood of the grape. But Jeshurun waxed fat, and kicked thou art waxed fat. Thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. Then he forsook God, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Of the rock that begat thee they are unmindful, and has forgotten God that formed thee. And when the Lord saw it, he abhorred them, because of the provoking of his sons and his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very forward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. For a fire is kindled in mine anger, and he shall burn until the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap mischief upon them, I will spend my arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat, and with bitter destruction I will send the teeth of beasts upon them, with the poison of serpents of the dust. The sword without and terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. I said I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and the Lord had not done all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. How should one chase 1,000, and two but 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and the Lord had shut them up? For their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves, being judges. For their vine is the vine of Sodom, and the fields of the Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall, their clusters are bitter, their wine is the poison of dragons, and the cruel venom of asps. Is not this laid up in store with me, and sealed up among my treasures? To me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them shall make haste. For the Lord shall judge his people, and repent himself for his servants, which he seeth their power is gone, and there is none shut up or left. And he shall say, where are their gods, their rock, in whom they trusted, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices, and drink the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you, and be your protection. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no God with me. I kill, and I make alive. I wound, and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven, and I say I live forever. If I whet my glittering sword, and my hand take hold of judgment, I will render vengeance to my enemies, and will reward them that hate me. I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword with devouring flesh, and that with the blood of the slain and the captives, from the beginning of reverence upon the enemy. Rejoice, O you nations. Listen to that. Rejoice, O you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful unto his land and to his people.
That's the song that Moses wrote, and he made them sing it. He also made them put it in the ark. He said, no, I didn't know that. And he was walking fast to another building, in fact, it was Gemini, and he was starting to speed it up as I told him this. I said, do you also know that God said it's going to be placed in the midst of the Gentiles, and there be no galleon ship with oars go thereby?